Good morning, Katie.
Hi, Dominic. Welcome, everybody. Lovely to see you. Welcome back to our Leaders Collaboration Forum 2025, to all of you here in the room, but of course to our guests joining us in the live stream from wherever and whatever time zone you are joining us. Welcome.
Well, I hope you had a good rest. I hope you had a good coffee this morning. Good to see you all again. As being said yesterday already, all information on the program, on the panels, on the speakers, and also, which I do think is the most important information, on the fellow participants, somebody you met but you didn't exchange mails, whatever, can be found on the event page. And the event page can be found under the QR code. I don't know where exactly. No, it's on the badges, right?
And it's always on the screen.
It's always on there. So, and additional information, of course, you also can use Slido for everything that seems to be important for you, especially later on when we split up into the diverse in 3 different breakout sessions.
Absolutely. And the core of this forum remains collaboration, but also this muscle of connection. And as it comes up with the muscle training, it's good that we fuel that muscle of networking and connection in these different groups throughout the day, in different forums, and also in the breakout sessions. And you know, you need strong partners for that training, of this resilience training. And with that, we would like to appreciate the partners that are also, of course, supporting this forum.
And if you also want to support the partners of this forum, maybe you can support them with a little round of applause. And the first partner I'd like to mention is the Unternehmertum. Big round of applause for Helmut Schönenberger, his team, and the Munich Unternehmertum, the most well-known and most successful startup accelerator in continental Europe.
Absolutely. And we also have the Energy Resilience Leadership Group. Thank you.
We're almost through. Clean tech for Europe. Big round of applause and a big thank you.
We have Climate Kick as support and partner. Thank you.
And the last one who helped kicking off this is our partners from the Collaborative Action Platform, Brazil. Obrigado. Thank you very much.
Obrigada. Wonderful. Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you.
See you later on stage and, of course, in the breakout rooms. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure, of course, to start now with you into our day and into our first chapter of the day. So Alexander De Croo was invited, and we all know who he is, former Prime Minister of Belgium, and he accepted the invitation, of course, for an opening stage interview. And then life happened. It happens sometimes, right? So as you might have followed the news, he was appointed to be the administrator and the head of the United Nations Development Program, known as UNDP. And he's right now in New York City. But he has sent us some words to our topic of European leadership, collaboration in these transformative times. Alexander De Croo, we are so thrilled to have you, so to say, in a video message on stage.
Good morning to you all. I wish I could be here with you today in Berlin, but as some of you may have heard, I have been called elsewhere. Partnership is what I believe in, and it lies at the heart of Europe's history and future. So let me start with a question. It's one I've often asked myself. Can Europe still lead in a world that is fragmenting, or will we remain passive and too divided to act? When I was Prime Minister, Europe went through some of its most testing years. We faced a pandemic, a war on our continent, an energy crisis that hit families and businesses particularly hard. And yet, in those moments, something remarkable happened. When we acted together, Europe proved its relevance to its citizens. On vaccines, on sanctions, on energy, we stood shoulder to shoulder. Unity was not a slogan, it was a strategy. Now, the challenge is different, but not less urgent. We are living through a silent crisis of confidence. The single market is the engine of our peace and prosperity, but it's also stalling under its own complexity. Industrial policy is back, and rightly so. But when every country starts building its own battery plant or its own chips fund, we lose global competitiveness as a union. Fiscal reform is finally on the table, and it could be a defining moment for the union. If we get it right, it can give Europe the financial space to invest together in climate, in defense, in competitiveness. Everyone wants strategic autonomy, but too often we confuse it with isolation. We compete with the United States and China, but we hesitate to complete the one project that made us competitive in the first place, a truly integrated European market. This is not about new treaties or new slogans. It is about political courage. If Europe wants to lead in AI, in clean tech, in energy security, then we cannot afford 27 different rules, 27 small markets, 27 subsidy races. That's why your discussions here at BMW matter. Because the future of Europe will not be built in Brussels alone. It will be built between the public, the private, and yes, also the philanthropic world. Europe has all the ingredients to lead. We have the talent, the technology, the values, and the capital. What we lack is belief. Let's stop underestimating ourselves. Let's stop apologizing for the European model. As I move on, I take with me one conviction. The world still looks to Europe. And Europe's story is not finished. It's simply waiting for its next chapter. Thank you, and I look forward to working with many of you in new ways and in new places.
Merci bien et mille fois to Alexander De Croo. Thank you. And we take, of course, some of your keywords for our following discussion when it comes to debate the quote, beyond the economics, stupid. And we'd like to understand the new way of creating prosperity in Europe. So since the 2008 financial crisis, and even more so since the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, it has become clear that Europe's future prosperity cannot exist alone on economic growth. So we need to debate that. What does it mean? What values do we have? What values do we need? And where do we have to work on? And how can Europe redefine growth to better reflect the values and the needs of the citizens? And looking up, what does a 21st century European model of prosperity look like with all the transformational factors and transformational details we are living in when it comes to climate change, digital transition, and not to forget the demographic shifts and the lack of social cohesion, or the eruption of social cohesion. Before I'm diving into that question with my fellow panelists, who are now, I think, all here, thank you, see you in a minute on stage, I'd like to ask you, through a Slido QR code and a Slido poll, what is your take on that? So with the question, what should be the top priority for advancing European prosperity in the next decade, you will find a QR code. And you will find several options. Maybe it's your answer, maybe it's lacking your answer, but maybe it's something we can also debate on in a second. So with that question, what should be the top priority for advancing European prosperity in the next decade? You will see the answer. Maybe it's for you the fiscal and economic reform. Maybe it is the climate and environmental sustainability. Maybe it is more investment in education, in science, and in innovation. Or you click on strengthening democratic institutions and social cohesion. Or maybe your priority is in the field of technological and industrial sovereignty. I leave it open to you because we will see the results in a second. I give you a moment of breathing in and breathing out so that we actually can collect all your answers. And I think then we will come to our panelists in a second. So please join me on stage because I do a proper introduction when we are seated. I welcome Paolo Gentiloni, Manuel Heitor, François Villeroy de Galhau, and Catherine Kluwer-Ashbrook. Join me on stage, please. Bonjour. Alors, Catherine, yes, to the left. Yes, please. Yes. Paolo, nice to meet you. Come join me here. Manuel in the center.
No, I'm here.
You're on the, yes, thank you,
Okay,
Catherine.
all right.
You?
I'm here on the outside, on the sideline. But with a lot of questions from the sidelines, of course. Wonderful. Bienvenue, welcome. So with us is Paolo Gentiloni, former EU Commissioner for the Economy, former President of the Council of Ministers of Italy, and in December 2024, the United Nations Secretary General appointed him co-chair of the group of experts to promote policy solutions for resolving the debt crisis. Thank you for being here and for joining us. Then we have Manuel Heitor with us. Thank you for joining us as well. You're the Director of Technology, Policy Lab at the Center for Innovation, Technology and Policy Research, joining in Lisbon and joining us from Portugal. But he's also the former Minister for Science, Technology and Higher Education of Portugal. And you had several terms in the government. We come to that into a second. Thank you, Manuel, for being here as well. Thank you. We also have, and bienvenue à Berlin. Thank you for making it, because you just landed, right?
Vielen Dank auf Deutsch.
Monsieur François Villeroy de Galhau, Governor of the Banque de France. Merci again. Thank you. And last but absolutely not least, thank you also for being here, the Executive Vice President of the Bertelsmann Stiftung, Catherine Kluwer-Ashbrook. A round of applause to all of our panelists, please. So before we are looking into your answers, you can still vote, of course. Catherine, following you around, you just came back from the States.
2 days ago,
Still
yeah.
jet lagged.
Yeah.
Maybe. we have coffee if you need. But with our topic of what are the values of prosperity when we look forward, when we look into the European perspective, I'd like to broaden the lens for that first round, asking you which values for prosperity are currently getting destroyed in the US that you see.
Gosh, where to start? How much time do you have? Well, look, I think we're in a really difficult moment, particularly for the American economy, that Americans have not yet fully realized, because there's a very bizarre set of programs that are being pursued by the president. Because in as much as you see massive structural change within the American government, with how power works in the United States, sort of a new definition of Article 2 in the American Constitution. This American president understands himself to be truly the center of all decision making. And at the same time, you have an erraticism in the policy making that does not actually live up to a lot of the plans that this government formulated. So on the ideological spectrum, you have a mass push on anti-intellectualism, an attack on universities. So many of the things, many of us have lived, worked, spent a lot of time in the United States that are the engine of America's innovation machine, of its growth capacity. You see in the markets an overwrought market, overly focused on the capacities of AI and technology, data technology, but also chip production technology in the extension, where all the other things that the president promised to resolve, sort of the issues, the massive wealth gap, the issues in production and industrial policy, in agriculture, have frankly just aggravated. I think we're going to see in a lot of different ways over the next couple of months some of the recessive energy that we imagined in the American economy sneaking up from sectors that we have less of a look on currently. So that has everything to do with some of the things that you mentioned earlier, which is to say that there's a disaggregation of this, not only the social contract in the United States, but fundamentally what underpins a functioning competitive economy right now. So if you ask me very simply, of the great economies that are integrated right now, so what economy is winning? Certainly it isn't the United States. I would put my money actually on the People's Republic of China, because as much as they're hedging in the international system, they have a clear line which the American government currently doesn't have. As we wake up this morning, we heard that on petty emotions, quote unquote, this president has decided to end trade negotiations with Canada based on an ad that the state of Ontario put out. That's not a way to run an advanced economy.
Okay. Thank you for the very first impression, Catherine Kluwer-Eschbruch. Okay, I think we are ready for the slide of results. Zooming into our perspective, because of course, we cannot leave the US spectrum, but we'd like to focus on the prosperity of Europe and what we need and what are the core values then in the European perspective. So let's have a look. What should be the top priority for advancing European prosperity in the next decade? So I see, a tough race between technological and industrial sovereignty and investment in education, science, and innovation. Fiscal and economic reforms, 10%. Climate and environmental sustainability, 16%. And in the middle, we see strengthening democratic institutions and social cohesion. It's still changing. Maybe you keep on voting, maybe it's changing at the end of our conversation, and then we have a look again if it has changed. Paolo, looking into the economic framework, and Heine, I'd like to come to you, of course, with the technological aspects in a second, but let's start with the economic framework. When it comes to evolving to support a broader definition of prosperity, where do you see the key factors that are currently needed and the working fields?
Well, good morning, first of all, and thank you. Well, there is something missing in the list of priorities, in my view, which is the fact that nowadays it's very difficult to have an economic strength and competitiveness without being a major geopolitical actor. So one of the main challenges for the European competitiveness now is, sorry to mention it, defense. Do we have a project for common defense? How do we fund it? Or we believe that we can still go on investing in our model, European model, without any substantial changes from this point of view. I think that the world has changed. I think it's obvious that the world has changed. The architect of the world order is now neglecting or destroying this world order. I had several relations with President Trump in his first term. I was the Italian Prime Minister, and by the way, Italy was chairing the G7 in the President Trump first year of the first term. But the president now apparently has a more ambitious idea of reshaping the world. At the time, it was only tariffs and some minor conflicts. So how Europe is in this, the last Foreign Affairs magazine title was Weaponized World Economy. So this, I think, is a huge priority. I'm happy to see that economic and fiscal reform
The last point,
are
10%.
are last. I'm very happy.
Why are you happy?
I
Why do you get a big smile? Because he's not smiling.
No, I would like to know the 10%, the people that still believe that this is the number one priority. In my view, it is partially so. Why? I think we have a decent fiscal framework now after the reform. Reform that we made was not perfect, not ideal, not what I wanted to have, but of course we had compromises, especially with Germany. It was not easy to reach. But at the end of the day, I think we have a system more or less realistic, flexible. We used the so-called escape clause after only 1 year on defense expenditures, and overall also enforced what we call in the Brussels language the excessive deficit procedures are there for 6 or 7 countries, including big economies like Italy and France, which was not obvious in the last 20 years in Brussels. What we miss, and this goes to your point of the larger idea of prosperity, we fundamentally miss a mechanism of common funding of the European common goods. How can we address all the challenges that we have without bringing our governance, economic governance, to a new level? And the new level is a permanent safe asset, a mechanism of common funding. This story has been discussed, Francois knows this very well, for a long time.
But it's not easy to find a solution and an answer, as it seems.
I think, well, I've seen that the Greek Prime Minister, who has a story to tell, the story of Greece recovery, raised the issue yesterday in the European Council in Brussels. And he said, and rightly so, this is the elephant on the room. Because yes, many of the projects we are referring to are then related to a European budget which is very limited, 1% of our overall expenditure. The US federal expenditure is 26%. Of course, we are not a federal state, but I would be happy to go from 1% to 2%, not to 26%. And So the European budget is very small, and the needs are very large. The risk of divergence among European countries, especially on this crucial issue, which is defense, if you have a divergence among European countries on defense, you undermine the basis of the European pillar, which was to make peace among Europeans. So my point is, okay, it's correct to say that this is the last of the problem because most of the problem has been solved, of the governance, meaning how to address the risks of debt sustainability. But if economic governance means how to give us the common tools to support everything we want, so the others'
The long list.
priorities,
Yeah.
well, I think we are not there, honestly.
Thank you. François, how do we get there to get the common funding for the common goods and to bridge these gaps? Because I think you maybe were one of the 10%
Yes.
prioritizing, I assume, but please correct
Yes.
me, fiscal and economic reforms,
no.
right?
Thank you. Darf ich zuerst auf Deutsch sagen, wie froh ich bin, in Berlin zu sein. Und ich muss hinfügen, ich hätte nie gedacht, ich würde eines Tages in meinem Leben in einem Gasometer sprechen. I come back to English and answer your question. I was very worried listening to Paolo because I thought for 30 seconds that for the first time in my life I would disagree with Paolo about implementing fiscal reform. But I think we agree. I agree on the European rule. It's the right one. It's a compromise. It's very complex. But now the priority is to implement it, starting with my own country. If I may, we have too high deficits and we should reduce them. Not only for European rules, it's also our national interest. And on economic reform, it probably depends on what we put under these words. I obviously agree with the 4 others' priorities. But as we are lucky enough to have a former Italian Prime Minister on stage, can I quote 2 other ones, who are Enrico Letta and Mario Draghi. They did last year excellent reforms about our European roadmap on economic reform. And I will come back to this issue of common funding, but let me start with that.
The Draghi report.
Most of the priorities in Letta and in Draghi don't cost any single euro. This is about strengthening the single market, deepening it, and this is about building a savings and investment union with a better use of private savings. We'll probably come back to it. But really, let us accelerate on this roadmap, have a clear implementation date, like Jacques Delors for the single market. You remember the 1st of January 93. Now let us take, for example, the 1st of January 28, but let us do it at end, what Alexander De Croo said. On the common funding, it shouldn't be an excuse, I stress it from a French official, to forget about national fiscal discipline. It's especially important to stress it in Germany, because there is always a suspicion that French and perhaps Italians are in favor of a common funding to forget about their national problems. No, it's not a transfer union. Let me be extremely clear about that. But what Paolo said about common goods is relevant, We did it after COVID with Next Generation EU, and you played a very instrumental role there. Now it's time probably to do it for defense. There is a very interesting reflection, I don't know if it's published already, by Hélène Rey, a French economist, Moritz Schularik, a German one, about new commons in defense, because we have new needs, drones, intelligence, digital technology, etc., where there is not yet an established European industry. For this one, probably the common funding is easier, because we have to build new capacities together. We don't have national producers who are entrenched behind their national borders. I think it's really time to accelerate. I welcome the proposal of my German colleague, Joachim Nagel, for a common defense budget minister. So let us go forward. Let me see a positive sign this week, and we have also some positive news in Europe. Yesterday was announced an agreement on the space industry between Airbus, Leonardo, and Thales, between three major industrialists coming from Germany, Italy, and France. This is a very positive sign. And common funding must go in parallel with common supply.
Does this give you hope for a European prosperity? This collaborations, what you've just mentioned, does this give you hope for European prosperity in the future?
Yes. It's not the only thing, and we have many other things to do outside of defense. We have to accelerate on clean energy, including nuclear, if I may. But let us not oppose renewables and nuclear. We need both. And each country can make its mix as it wants. But decarbonized energy, we have to accelerate on artificial intelligence and digital. And all the measures which are in Draghi and Letta would help. But let us produce more of European sovereign energy, defense, and artificial intelligence.
But François, if you allow, you mentioned Joachim Nagel, your German colleague. What role then do you see, or can national banks play in creating prosperity in the way?
You mean central banks, or because I'm not a commercial banker, I'm a central banker, and we work together within what we call the Euro system. This is ECB plus Bundesbank, Banque de France, Banca d'Italia, Bank of Portugal, and we work closely together. We will have a governing council next week. So, by the way, I'm not allowed to say any word about monetary policy today because we have this governing council. But we try, really, and I think we succeed in this very uncertain world to give strong anchors of stability, price stability, and financial stability. And I think this is a decisive contribution to lowering the level of interest rates and fostering private investment. That said, we can go beyond this primary mandate or this core mandate where we are independent and we must remain independent to collaborate more with other European institutions, with other political authorities when we foster a better fiscal policy, when we speak about structural reforms, as I just did, when we speak about climate and we act about climate, it's mentioned among our challenges. There is a link with price stability and financial stability, obviously, but we go beyond our primary task to foster a strengthening of European economy. And we are also very interested in a stronger European economy.
Yeah.
If I may, I follow what Catherine said. Trump has at least the merit to make all of us closer.
True.
Looking on the good sides, absolutely. Manuel, talking about reports, we just heard about the Draghi report and the Letta report, of course, but a report that you published titled Align, Act and Accelerate, especially when it comes to research, technology and innovation, which is also the first one, 28%, it rises up now as a priority, to boost, of course, European competitiveness and to be implemented in the best case in a short term, because we don't have more time to lose as we often hear. So what gives Europe, in your view, this needed prosperity through innovation? Why are you so in favor of that field and sector?
Kati, thank you so much for the question, and thank you also for the invitation to be here. I will answer your question also with a question. Can we prevent the diseases that we are treating today? I'm speaking about mental health, cancer, but also the climate disaster with the solutions that we have listened today. And also, we have the necessary framework for prevention, preparedness, and readiness, as was told. And the answer has been and will be always science and innovation. And my point is that we have done it in Europe. When we look at the crisis after the COVID, now we can certainly identify that Europe was very much united, and we have here key persons in that process, with three key issues. Give a new centrality to research and innovation, which were absolutely critical for the vaccines. We cannot forget that we have the scientific capacity, particularly through our very unique European Research Council, which have really allowed us to build a true scientific foundation in Europe. We developed a public procurement at an European level for the very first time for the vaccines, and we have already been said, we Europeans have allowed the Commission to raise funds through the financial markets and build the so-called Next Generation EU, or the Recovery and Resilience Facility. So I will argue that today we are facing new and probably much more complex crises, and we need not to reinvent the wheel, to give more centrality and a better centrality to research and innovation. And it is very clear, it is not only here. I've been traveling throughout Europe. I was in Lithuania 2 days ago, but also in Copenhagen last week, and this has become a key issue throughout Europe. We have the capacity, but we need, by being proud of the European project, to understand that we lag behind still in the levels of investment. The unique opportunity we are facing is that we all are designing the next framework program. And it's important to note that we are in a philanthropic association, the BMW Foundation, and actually our report, Align, Act, Accelerate, builds on the Letta and Draghi report, but also on the absolute need to articulate philanthropic institutions, either for frontiers research or disruptive innovation, and we can do it, particularly using the instruments that we have already developed in Europe for COVID.
But do we support it in a European way, technology, innovation, and science, of course? Because you know, every national country, every national government, of course, has their own projects, and you're a big fan, as I've heard yesterday, from Sprint, which is a German, the Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation here based in Germany, for those of you who are not aware of Sprint. But is there a European way, then, of finding these unicorns, like Sprint tries to find it in Germany?
Again, we have a good standard of the evolution of 40 years of the European Framework Program. We know, and we have built over the last 20 years, a unique program for frontier science, which is known everywhere, not only here in Berlin, but in Beijing or in Washington, the European Research Council, and is like that because it is full autonomous. So our first recommendation is to use the RC model to really open up Europe. But we also have noticed that, actually, just to give you an idea, most of or a large fraction of the startups funded through the European Innovation Council over the last 5 years derive directly from fundamental science sponsored through the European Research Council in a very short period of time. We Europeans were used to use these type of examples from the United States. Now we have them in Europe, but we don't have been able to foster enough funding and to have to take more risks, to take failures and to really accept failures as a step to success. Therefore, our recommendation to the Commission is, or was, to experiment new ways, particularly like the SPRING-D agency in Germany or the new Advanced Research and Innovation Agency in UK. We need to experiment because we currently are facing a process in Europe that time to funding of a new idea is at least 1.5 years and sometimes two years. We need to break this.
Catherine.
And actually, just let me see, we are again in a philanthropic institution, and our recommendation to the Commission, when we look at European and US, but also above all European philanthropic institutions, there are many good examples of new new assessment and funding issues. So our recommendation is the Commission should articulate with philanthropic institutions and experiment new process to speed up, certainly by enlarging frontier science and research, but at the same time, to better articulate with disruptive innovation. And we are speaking about critical issues to allow, and I will conclude, what these days in Europe we call for a new framework of prevention, preparedness, and readiness. It requires more science together with disruptive innovation. And again, we have done it. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel, in my view. It's to use the instruments and the capacity that we've been built and act and accelerate with a few instruments. But as clearly was said, the European budget is small. We are facing now a very interesting proposal submitted in mid-July by President von der Leyen. Is a good first step, but it is not enough. It is not only myself, Mario Draghi, a few weeks ago in Brussels, in front of President von der Leyen, was clear, and also President von der Leyen in early July in the European Budget Conference, she was very clear. We need more what she called European own resources. And again, we have done it in the COVID. So this idea to join forces to face the opportunity that we have needs to be done always with more science and innovation.
Absolutely. A lot of keywords. I'm picking them up in a second. But Catherine, I hear a clear challenge when it comes to the side of the foundations and philanthropy side.
Well,
do you accept the challenge?
No, well, we always accept the challenge because that's what we do, because that's what the third sector fundamentally is responsible for. But I just want to pick up, I think this is, all three of my previous speakers have noted, first of all, that in a moment of crisis, the European Union can do much more, and it has. It's given itself a new vehicle, which are the projects of common European interest. And we've, and this has been true, by the way, in the Ukraine war. I will never forget this when my lovely colleague Natalie Tocci sat with the High Representative Borrell and said, well, where's your famous peace facility? And within 10 days, it was ready and it worked. And it's similar here, because what you've heard here is that what we need above all is common European risk-taking, right, where we pool our assets, but we also accept common risk, because you can only do cutting-edge research, you can only do the kind of R&D that's going to be necessary, particularly on the issues that are going to drive global competitiveness, whether it's quantum, it's biotechnology, all these issues, if you're factually pooling resources. And so this vehicle, this idea that you can have common projects of European interest in which you invest private capital, you think more smartly. And we had a big debate in Europe, of course, in terms of what we do with our pension funds. The Germans are big savers. We don't make our money work. And now is the time to make the money work and to look at the Danish models and to look at the Nordic models and to figure out how to bring, and this was poorly communicated, by the way, in the German context, because we did have this debate in the last government about how you begin to mobilize pension funds so that they can be supportive to things like functional capital markets. So you're investing, because this is also a point about leadership. We saw yesterday the European heads of states write to the president of the council and say, we need more from you on competitiveness. My Harvard colleague, Robert Putnam, wrote the theory about this two-level gamesmanship that we've been playing in the European Union since the advent of time, which is to say that we come into these European rooms and we think about how we pool sovereignty, and then we go outside and say, ha, I won a victory for France. That's not how it's going to work anymore, which is to say it's true acceptance of both risk and responsibility. That means figuring out how to do more asset pooling in various different ways. One way is the defense sector, but we have to think about this in order to preserve our European thinking around prosperity, whole life cycle development. So Manuel mentioned, it's critical to link up our universities and to create the kind of architecture around it. But when I was asked when the attack started on American universities, particularly on life science and research, if this was an opportunity for Europe, if we had nanotechnology laboratories not linked to corporations like the Massachusetts Institute of Technology has, then yes. So If you build it, they will come, which is to say we have to reinvest in our facilities. That's part of infrastructure. That's part how in Europe, and particularly in Germany, where we now have the Sondervermögen, we have to think about infrastructure. We have to think about schools. We have to think about the feeder system that will provide the kind of talents, by the way, in a competitive atmosphere where we have an opportunity to do that. And so if you look at Heidelberg, which is one of the nodes for innovation in this country, I just had the mayors from the United States and Germany in, and the mayor of Heidelberg says, we do this because we do this from an ecosystem perspective. Schools to research facilities to universities to linkages between sectors. That has to be composite of the European model, that we think along the life cycle of competitiveness, because we know, as François said, what the effects are. If the Germans stepped up their R&D spending similar to the US, and again, it's going to decline structurally in the United States, that's a 3.2% GDP plus. Wouldn't we all want additional 3.2% GDP right now? Huh? So my point is, all these things are interconnected, but you cannot, as European leaders, you cannot keep passing the buck back to the Commission and the Council, and vice versa. So this is now, and we heard this from Alexander De Croo, this is an opportunity to begin to craft this as a hope narrative, as a functional, all hands on deck kind of opportunity, because we have a set of tools now. We know that we need to mobilize different sectors of capital, and we need to be very critical with it. And the thing is, we need to be honest with our electorate. Because if we have one thing left with respect to how our democracies work, is trust. That is the #1 most fickle good within our democracies. And if we don't begin to prepare our electorate, and this is, to answer your question, where the third sector comes in, where other social actors come in, which is to say there's clearly here a need for a certain prioritization, what we at the Bertelsmann Stiftung call mission-oriented work. We have to prioritize. We heard about space, we heard about defense, we heard about life sciences, and that's going to change our fiscal structures. That's going to change the way your tax dollars are spent. That's going to change the way that we think about what makes our communities vital. And that is some of the issue shaping, the research, the proof positive that think tanks, that research organizations like mine can offer to help make that promise to our electorate. Because if the trust isn't there, because you can see our voters can feel something is changing, and they're freaked out by change. So you have to be in this negotiation where you're helping move people into this new environment, including thinking about their personal savings. And that needs a containing device of leadership, and that's in part where the third sector has a big role to play.
Paolo, I'd like to pick up on the word of trust and also what Alexander De Croo mentioned, the call for more unity in that momentum of time. When we create the long-term resilience and the long-term prosperity. Again, you mentioned, of course, earlier, European defense is important, but what else would be something that you'd like to point out in response also to what Catherine mentioned, to bring all hands on deck?
Well, one of the main chance that we have, I think one of the main opportunity, is exactly because of what is happening in the US, a European effort on attracting talents. What Catherine said about the universities and research system, how this could be attractive in the global stage, I think is absolutely crucial. Another point that I would like to stress is the fact that we all know that we will have enormous pressure on public finances in the coming years. Where are these pressures coming from? First, by the fact that we have industrial policies, state support for innovation, technology. This was not there. If in Brussels you refer to industrial policy 5 or 10 years ago, you were crazy. This was not something for Europeans. Competitiveness, competition, not competitiveness, was our industrial policy. Now we all know that we have to spend money for innovation industrial policy. We have to spend money to make the climate transition possible, to avoid that the climate transition becomes a political disaster and something fueling nationalistic, anti-European stance. So without giving up on the climate transition, but we need money to support it. We need money for defense. We need money because of our longevity, which is very good, especially for guys over 70. Our longevity is very good, but of course the pressure on pension system, healthcare will be enormous with the demographic we have. So how we address this issue of the pressure on public finances? Of course, what we were referring before, this common funding idea, is more related to the perspective of the European project than to solve the pressure on public finances. And Francois was rightly saying that this is not a way for indebted country to solve their problems. It would be very easy if this would be the solution. So common funding is useful, but it's not the solution. I think the solution should come by the fact that we have to address how a couple of global issues are answered in Europe. First, are we able to find a model of rules-based open trade now in the world? We are the only one, we Europeans or the Chinese. But the Chinese are proposing themselves for this. I don't think they are the solution. Do we have a model of rules-based open trade? Do we have a model for legal migration? Are we sure that we can address these economic constraints and challenges without migrants in our economy? If we believe this, we are crazy. But of course, we all know the political liability of this issue and how difficult it is to find a European model. We are not going towards this, unfortunately, a European model for legal migration. And finally, we need to address a couple of major things that are not European. They are mostly national. First, how do we reform the tax system? In France, the discussion is very lively.
Vivid. Lively.
It means that we have a new prime minister every three
But
weeks.
this means, of
apparently.
course, political leadership. And this is also a question of our forum.
And, well, tax system, knowing that we are already above 40% of taxation in Europe, so the solution is not increasing taxes. And second, how do we redesign our welfare systems? So for national governments, for the European common funding, migration and trade European models. We love European models. We should be proud of European success. I'm not so happy. I'm very happy with the Draghi and Letta report. I'm not happy of many following this and complaining too much about Europe. We have a lot to do, to catch up, but very little to complain. We are privileged to be Europeans. We are happy, we are okay, we are good. So we have to try to solve these huge problems, global, European, and national. Otherwise, the pressure on public finances will transform itself in political pressure.
Yeah.
And the political pressure will go against Europe. What is uniting the different national protest? Dismantle the EU. in a direct or indirect way. So I think to address these things for our governments, for our leaders, industrial leaders, intellectual leaders, philanthropic leaders, is very important. If we don't move, if we stay with this kind of systems on migration, on taxation, on trade, on welfare, without reforms, I think we put at risk the enormous success that we had in the recent 70 years.
Thank you, Paolo. Francois, you have had a thought.
No.
Where do you see this window of opportunity, maybe?
First, to say that I agree completely with the Gentiloni Berlin's agenda for Europe. And especially on one point, let us be a bit more proud to be Europeans. If I may say it so in a rather provocative way, let us have at least one American virtue, which is self-confidence. We need more self-confidence and we need more ambition.
Thank you.
We have the resources. What we lack is the will and the speed to mobilize them.
But who's in charge of speed? I hear that on a lot of panels. We need speed, we need courage. On every panel I moderate, it's the same buzzword. Who's then in charge of it? Who should I address that?
Can I give a concrete example?
Yes,
which
please.
is another solution for this issue of funding you mentioned, which is a so-called saving and investment union. What is it about? It's about mobilizing not only public funding, because this resource is very scarce, but private savings.
Yep, there you go.
And let me be crystal clear about the situation. Perhaps I will surprise you. Europe does not lack savings.
No.
On the contrary, European households save more than the US ones. What we lack is channeling these savings to equity.
Exactly.
It's more in risk-free products like deposits, fixed income, etc. It's much more on the other side of the Atlantic in equity. And second view, which will perhaps surprise you still more, Europe as a whole does not lack investment as a whole. It's a bit less true in Germany, but as a whole, European investment is more or less at par with US investment. But again, it's a problem of composition. We invest much more than the US in real estate, and we invest much less in innovation. If you lack technology, digital, etc. And there is, this is perhaps my value added, there is a clear link between these two views I just presented. If you are an entrepreneur and you are less funded by equity and by venture capital, you take less risk and you run less disruptive innovation. Why? Because innovation is much more risky. Manuel stressed it, and the only way to reward risk is equity. It's not credit. So this is what Saving and Investment Union is about, to use better private savings in order to develop equity and venture capital and hence disruptive innovation in, again, artificial intelligence, energy, defense, the three priorities I mentioned. And here there are some concrete proposals on the table. They are not very less known, but there is a Commission agenda last March by Commissioner Albuquerque with still 21 proposals. I don't know if you agree, Paolo. I think that 21 is still too much. I propose to focus on 5 of them for equity and venture capital. I will only mention 2 this morning. The first one is the so-called 28th regime for startups and diminishing all the cross-border costs, diminishing the cost of failure, which is much higher in France and in Germany than in the US. And the second one is unified supervision for capital markets, because we need venture capital funds which are no longer at national scale, but at European scale. Are you aware that the #1 European VC, venture capital fund, which happens to be Swedish, is smaller than the #10 in the US? And why Swedish? Because Swedish have pension funds, by the way.
Exactly,
It helps.
the Nordics.
This could be a third proposal. But let me focus on these two ones. Here, speed. And I don't know what should stop us. I don't know what should stop us. This is why I insisted on an implementation date. Because the success of the law with the 1st of January 93 was tremendous in mobilizing and changing the mindset. He succeeded in aligning political will, administrative work, and business plans. Every corporate in Europe knew that there was something to come in Europe. There was a project Europe. I am fully in agreement with Catherine about the economic limits of the project US at present. It's really time to have a counter project for Business Europe. And I think many corporates in Europe are a bit uncertain, hesitant about the US project, to say the least.
As they
So
should be.
it's really time to offer this opportunity, and I think a mobilization day, the elements are on the table, but they should be pushed together with a stronger visibility, a stronger political push, and a stronger calendar. As I said, we have to be American. Can I quote Walt Disney, who is not invited in this panel? He is dead for long. But Walt Disney said, do you know what is the difference between a dream and a project? It's a calendar. This is the answer to your question about speed.
Yes, absolutely, because this call for a deadline, while researching for that panel, it's a very loud voice that you're voicing every time, the call for a calendar and a deadline. Catherine, you want to jump in on some thoughts?
This is a perfect add-on, because I was going to say something about creativity. We've heard now that we have, we have a national or a European default, which is that we're afraid. Okay, we have the risk piece is some version of fear, right? But this gets back to Paolo's earlier point, is that we also aren't understanding the idea that we have value to offer in a rules-based order that is quickly atrophying. That means that we need to make the rules-based order an interest piece. So I don't understand, and let me just be provocative, why Anthony Albanese has to go to the White House to offer a critical minerals deal when we could have been talking to him earlier. We don't have to make it loud. Okay? Look at all the rest of the democracies, and if we, quote unquote, had a coordinated approach instead of sending the German foreign minister to Indonesia, you know, sort of striking these subnational deals, both on, by the way, on labor force issues, but on raw materials issues. We see many European leaders running sort of unstrategically into the world, again, trying to score the victory. That is not a way to do business in the way that Paolo's described the urgency of the moment. So, Australia, Japan, South Korea. By the way, South Korea and Japan, vital.
Canada.
Well, they really need, no, I just came back from there. And Francois, I will tell you, there is no country currently as, let me use the American technical term, freaked out as the Canadians. They have a lot to offer on raw materials, on steel and aluminum, on a number of issues.
So is this a European opportunity?
And they are fundamentally, not just because of the trade piece, but they feel physically threatened. And they fear for their role in NATO, and they have they're a massive market for European defense goods, by the way, massive. So what I don't look, I'm as European, despite my American accent, as the rest of the people on this panel, which is to say, we need to really overcome this apprehension, because not only do we have something to offer to the world, if we finally put together something that would, be reminiscent of a European economic security strategy. So that's two things. Keeping our markets safe, by the way, 289 billion euros, Milliarden euros, the German economy loses to cyber, IP, ransomware, so keep the lockbox safe, so we got to work on that at the same time, and then begin to connect more with the democracies that can offer some of the fundamental things that we need, so we get ahead of, as Paolo mentioned, the weaponization piece. We're pretending as if we're not a strategic continent. We have all the knowledge and all the foresight. We've heard it here in different ways, so we got to make it work. And that, by the way, is a story you can, again, tell to our voters. if we believe in our fundamental systems architecture, then we have priorities to set here. You know, it begins in different sectors of society, but one thing is that we're going to make a coordinated approach to the kind of countries that will allow us to keep that competitive angle. The fact that we sit here this week and VW in Wolfsburg is curtailing the production of cars because we have, quote unquote, run out of Nexperia chips in this day and age is absurd, as if we can't plan, as if we don't know. We know. We have all this knowledge. And so now we have to make it a strategic, structured, and this is where we're frankly poor, and this is where we need to learn something from the Americans. When we write strategies, whether it's the 2016 global strategy in Europe or the German national security strategy, we never prioritize. And the way to do it is prioritize and put money with the priorities, because then that's something that people can understand, and that's how you can also sell the idea of more risk-taking, because that's what you fundamentally need. Knowing, as everybody has said here, you're working against cultural energies and fear that is long held. So the effort you're going to have to make in bringing people along, in creating those kind of global priorities, and fundamentally having those kind of international arrangements, not to, by the way, I just wrote a piece in Foreign Policy about this, not to thumb it to the Americans, but to say, you know what, if all bets are off and this is about interest, that's where we're going.
Can I add that Canada has the advantage of having a prime minister who is a former central banker.
And who is very smart, shrewd, and priority-driven.
Yes. Manuel, what is your take on that? And then I have an after question for Catherine again. Manuel.
In our report, we recommend the Commission to launch a program, Choose Europe, which actually has already been accepted by the Commission, together with more than doubling the European Research Council. Maria Leptin, the President of the European Research Council, is in the audience. She can report. But a few weeks ago, Commissioner Zaraeva reported that the number of applications to ERC from the United States have been multiplied by 5 in the last call, and the number of applications of researchers for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie has multiplied by tenfold. And therefore, the Choose Europe program should definitely be considered at the same time, as Paolo mentioned, to be an element of European industrial policy, because we are facing an increasing polarization, social and political, of our societies, very much supported also here in Germany by young adults. So we need to provide better jobs and introduce in industrial policy the idea of quality of jobs. This has been reported by the European Science Policy Research Center. Also in the United States, Dan Roderick at Harvard has mentioned that in the last 5 years we cannot look only at labor productivity, but we need to introduce clearly, and Europe is in the unique position to make it now, to essentially introduce the quality of jobs, particularly of young adults, into the context of industrial policy. And this should start again by science and through research and innovation, by providing better research careers. And again, actually, in close agreement with the suggestion by Bernard, our suggestion to the Commission is to launch Choose Europe as a co-funding mechanism, using existing co-funding mechanism to make use of private savings, together with seed funding from the Commission. But Choose Europe is a must, because when we look at the last 20 years, several hundreds of thousands of young adults left to the United States. So we need to turn, in the coming 3 to 4 years, the existing European brain drain in an European brain gain. And we can do it. The figures in the last 6 months show we can do it. But we really need to have specific instruments. And again, don't reinvent the wheel. Use what we have and build on our strengths, because Choose Europe should be a reality this moment.
Thank you at that moment for that round. I know time's up, and I'd like to have a last round, and then it's up to you in the breakout sessions in a second, because the title of this session, I found it very interesting. It's called "It's the Economy, Stupid." And when you follow down the path of this message, it was a defining message in the 1992 US presidential campaign of Bill Clinton, which I found quite interesting. And what I hear is, it's maybe the economy, but it's also the priority, what I heard from you. It's the deadline and the calendar. It's the economy, but also it's geopolitics and defense. And it's innovation, right? Did I miss anything? Anything else? Maybe we just assume that we have more titles in the future in that regard.
Optimism.
Optimism. Oh, wonderful. I leave you all to that. It's the optimism.
Pride.
Pride. Thank you very much in that regard. A big round of applause to Paolo Gentiloni, François Villora de Gallo, Manuel Hayter, and Catherine Kluwer-Ashbrook. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Grazie.
Grazie.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy the rest of your time here at our wonderful forum. Thank you very much. Your round of applause again. Yes, and I know it's been a very broad topic. Thank you very much. Obrigada. A very broad topic. And the good thing is now, of course, we started with a lot of keywords now in the air, a lot to think of. Even my head is turning. And now it's good because we are diving into the breakout sessions. And for that, come on stage. I welcome my fellow colleagues Saya and Dominic here on stage as we are diving into the breakout sessions, right, with expert rounds, because expert voices will guide you then through these deep dive discussions in the breakout sessions. I am happy to moderate the breakout session talking about developing new international partnerships and global geo-economic fragmentation. Dominic, what about you?
I'm going to be moderating breakout session number 1, which is taking place on the upper floor here. Is that right? On the 15th floor, and you're going to are going to accompany you to the elevators, and we're going to have the gentleman who is raising his hand, by the way, is
in a second, yeah,
Michael, and we're going to talk about the problem of fragmentation in Europe and how to solve that problem.
Saya, what keeps you busy then in your breakout session?
So we will be in breakout 3. So for everyone that's really dying to talk about cities, we'll be going into reimagining future urban resilience. We'll be in the Sky Bar, also on the top floor, making much more noise than your group.
Wonderful. So we proceed now to the breakout sessions, and we made it very easy. It's just like boarding a plane. So breakout number 1 with Dominic's topic. You can follow Dominic, Michael, and Onika now towards the stairs, taking the elevator up to the 15th floor. So please.
It's going to be very interesting. I'm advertising a little bit for my session, so come on, everybody.
And I think you are seated here somewhere, so breakout number 1 is leaving the room. Breakout number 3, a very hot topic, the future of urban areas and urban resilience, reimagining urban resilience. Everyone with a number 3 on your badge. It goes with Anna, Teresa, and Esther then to the Sky Bar. So we'll meet here at the...
To the Sky Bar.
Up to the Sky Bar. Here, you meet here around the corner, so you don't get lost on your boarding. And where is my breakout session, number 2, about topic, the developing new international partnerships? Yes, hands up, are we all together? Yes, don't let me down, guys. We'll stay here, okay? And we have a little break now, and then we start again at 11:15. See you soon. Thank you very much for your attention and your engagement. Enjoy the rest. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, that's why I already pushed the chairs to the front. Can you do me a favor if you just come a bit, a single step closer, so it's a bit more like a conversation, not a stage.
Interesting social.
Stage talk. Right? You can bring, of course, your water if you need anything. It's more. Yes. I'm not biting. I'm always smiling. So the first row is happy to be busy as well. Say hi to your neighbors quickly. Who are you? What are you doing? Hello, hello. Yes. First name would be a pleasure, of course, connecting. So at least you can find a new friend, right? Discussing friend. Good. Thank you for signing up to this breakout session. It's beautiful to see you all. And as you can see, there are a lot of free chairs, but there's one particular free seat. And this situation quite often when it comes to the so-called fishbowl method, right? So this would be your seat. But you can also raise your hand if you have any questions, because we are in this small group. Tiago is with us. So he's also the moderator of the session. It's not just my burden this time, which is beautiful because Tiago is a wonderful colleague of the BMW Foundation, team member, very actively engaged in preparing that session. And he will also, of course, has an eye on our on our QR code, because this is also directing you towards Slido. So if you're a bit shy but you still have a question, just submit and send your question along. Don't forget to press the send button. Sometimes it's a detail, but it's a very important detail that Tiago can actually see your questions. So just to frame a little bit our session, the topic, as you can see, is developing new international partnerships amid global geo-economic fragmentation. I mean, this whole topic of transformational changes is keeping us busy all over the 2 days here at the forum. But we are still, of course, trying and looking for and debating about innovative solutions and ways forward that drive development, that are reducing dependencies, and that enhance the strategic autonomy when it comes to collaboration, And this is also what we'd like to discuss. What are the criteria when it comes to this other big buzzword of partnership and collaboration? So what makes it beneficial, what makes it resilient, sustainable, but also, of course, successful, and how to structure in these new times maybe partnerships need to have different and newly adopted structures. And this is something where, of course, your expertise and your thoughts come in. And I just like to invite you, wherever you agree, but also wherever you disagree before the set and debate it, come in, right? We have this microphone. It's not live streamed. Is it live streamed? Hang on. I need to double check that. It is live streamed. Okay. So it's not Chatham House rules. Forget what I said. It's public. You're out there. But that doesn't matter, because I think every voice matters, and we need to understand what keeps you all going. But when it comes to irritating voices, we need to get into these ones as well. Okay, I'd like to welcome two speakers here who will give us a few inputs. So Leslie Johnston is with us, the CEO of Lotus Foundation. She launched the foundation as its first chief executive officer in beginning of 2020. But she brings over 20 years of management experience and expertise across business and philanthropy into that work, and she's leading the development of the foundation's initial vision, strategy, and operating model. Leslie Johnston is with us. Leslie, thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
The first row is still free for the latecomers.
Well, they're not. I mean, it says on the program 11:15.
Well, the moderator says 11 o'clock. So what the moderator is saying, that's the clock. That's the program. No, welcome to the new faces. Lovely. Thank you for signing up for our breakout. And we have Rob with us. Rob van Riet from the First Movers Coalition. Rob is the head of the First Movers Coalition at the World Economic Forum, which is an initiative that aims to harness the purchasing power of companies to bring forward the market for critical clean technologies and, of course, to decarbonize heavy emitting industrial sectors. Thank you, Rob, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And then it's your seat, of course. Again, the invitation later on if you have any questions and comments. So Leslie, let's start. What are your thoughts that you brought with you? And what is something that you'd like to share with us to underline, to debate, and to discuss?
Great, thank you. Well, first, before I start, who here is from a foundation or in philanthropy in some way? Anyone? Okay, that's great, because I want to talk to the power of philanthropy, give an example of what that does. So my name's Leslie. I run Lotus Foundation. It's a private foundation that's been working in industry transformation for 6 years. What I'd like to do is leave you with 3 messages. So I'm going to start with those. So if you remember anything, this is it. Number 1, authentic and effective collaboration is really hard to do, but there's a playbook. So I'm going to talk to the playbook. I think number 2, philanthropy can be an important catalyst, but it's more of a spark, not a scaler. I think there's an over-reliance on philanthropy. And then number 3, it's the other P's of the public-private philanthropy partnerships, that terrible acronym, PPPP. It's the public and private bits that really matter. And so I want to talk to kind of how private sector is stepping up. So a couple things. I won't talk about Lotus so much, but I do want to say that, we were born under a very entrepreneurial family to try to change industry and transform industry, which is kind of a big ask of a foundation that gives away about 70 million a year. So since our founding, we've given away about 350 million. We have over 300 partners. That's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money if you're looking at how you're trying to change 4 industries: buildings, fashion, finance, and food. So what I do want to talk to is how we do that, and I'm going to talk to buildings, because I know there's another breakout that's talking about urban resilience. Buildings are really important, because if you care about climate, you should care about buildings, because they're 40% of emissions, which is driven largely by the steel and the cement in the production of the inputs. That's really important. And if you look at buildings right now in terms of the emissions at 40%, 70% is coming from operational, 30% from what's called embodied carbon, the stuff inside. But that's going to flip. In about 30 years, it's going to be 50-50. And that's because buildings are going to increase. We're going to double the volume of buildings in the world, and therefore the embodied carbon is really important. So what happens inside buildings is super important. So can philanthropy solve that? No, because buildings are really complicated. It's a very fragmented industry amongst developers, architects, insurers, investors. It's a very regulated industry. It's very localized. Building codes are very localized. It's financialized. So it actually is, there's a separation between the investors and then what happens in the real economy. And it's asset-based. You build a building, it's there for 60 years. So it's really hard to move that industry. And yesterday we heard a lot from innovators that are really working on solutions around energy and that sort of thing. We need innovation, but we also need something that can kind of create that imperative for change and bring unlikely allies together. And that's where philanthropy comes in. And what I want to talk about is not the steel and cement that's driving the emissions, but a new opportunity to bring bio-based materials into buildings in a way that creates healthy, safe, beautiful spaces that actually sequester carbon. So that's what we're trying to do with our work in buildings. And about 3 years ago, as a foundation, we created a platform called Built by Nature. So that is a nonprofit organization, but is essentially a platform that has one goal, which is to enable a built environment that works in harmony with nature. So what does that actually mean? What do they do? Well, what we found is in this very fragmented industry across the insurers and the developers and the studios, no one's really talking to each other. So there's 3 things that Built by Nature does. They connect, they enable, and they amplify. And by connect, we're trying to bring the unlikely allies together in a room. We have front-runner companies. There's about over 100 of them now. One of them is DRMM here in Berlin. Great company. They actually won the Front Runner of the Year award that was just done a couple weeks ago. But these front runner companies are really important because they show what this looks like. What does good look like? And that's really important. As a foundation, we have no credibility in saying what a good bio-based solution could look like. They're doing it and they're making money on it. So that's number 1. Number 2, enable. We do a lot to remove barriers. So we have, for example, the Principles for Responsible Timber Construction. That's something that Built by Nature just released. That provides the guidance and the guardrails for companies because timber construction has to be done in a certain way. Clearly, you don't want to chop down trees all over the world to build your buildings. So you have to have responsible forestry that feeds into the building side. And then the amplify side is super important because that's where you celebrate success. So Built by Nature has, for example, the prize where you shine a light on what works. And it also has been recognized by your organization, the World Economic Forum, as got one of the first awards in the Gaia Awards for the best innovation. So super important because that puts a light on what's working and inspires others. So that's what we're doing with Built by Nature. I want to give you just one quick example, if I may. I think I have a minute or 2 left.
Absolutely. When I'm smiling, it's all good.
Okay, good. I'll keep going. So what does this actually mean? So let's take the case of the UK. The UK, you probably remember, I think it was 2017, the Grenfell Tower disaster. Do you remember that? That was a horrible, horrible thing. 70 people died. And as a result, the UK government basically said no combustible materials could be used in buildings. And that includes CRT, cross-laminated timber. So that's an issue. So the insurance companies say, well, we're not going to insure this stuff, or if we do insure it, then we need to actually put a premium on it. And one thing that Built by Nature did was they got everyone in a room, first step, convenience is really important, but more importantly, got a couple insurance companies to say, would you insure this if you actually understood the risks? And to understand the risks, they developed the Mass Timber Insurance Playbook. And that sounds like probably not the most exciting thing you want to read before you go to bed, but it is probably the most impactful thing we could have done because it helps them understand the risks with water, with fire, with all these things that go into building construction that inform what price an insurer will put on the insurance. So that's a great example, and as a result, some insurance companies have actually reduced what they charge on the interest side. So has it been a success? Well, it's only been 3 years, and bio-based materials in buildings is still pretty limited. But what I do want to point out is that philanthropy here has played a really important role as an activator. And I don't know if Darian is here from the Partnering Initiative. I'm not sure if he's in the room now. But the Partnering Initiative has been one of our partners that's helped us actually capture what is the playbook for how you bring all these players together and make this change happen? And they have a nice piece of research. I highly recommend you check it out. It's called the Systems Change Activation, and it actually talks about...
Hang on, we all need to write it down. Say it again, slowly.
Systems Change Activation report. And it actually walks through the playbook, which is convene, co-design, catalyze, de-risk, and enable learning. So I won't go into that, but as I reflect on Built by Nature and what we've done, we have effectively followed that playbook. And when I think about the lessons that I've had and my team's had, number one, bringing together people who normally don't talk to each other is super important, and it's not easy to do. You need to be an objective platform where people want to come and they see the value of spending their precious time there. So that's number one. Number two, throw money at it. These bio-based buildings are not going to build themselves, and actually there's not really a market imperative other than the European Building Directive, which is actually trying to tackle the embodied carbon issue, but you do need to throw money at it. And as a foundation, we've put millions into setting up Built by Nature, and now 2 other foundations have come in and joined us. And the third one is really important, because that's where philanthropy plays a really important role, which is show what's possible, because we can demonstrate what good looks like, but what best looks like. And that's really exciting. And if I can end with a quote that, I don't know if anyone knows Bill McDonald, but he's an architect in the US, co-author of the Cradle to Cradle, and he once said to me, if it exists, it's possible, so make it exist. And that's what we tried to do as philanthropy.
Thank you. Leslie Johnson. I see a few new faces here. So Leslie Johnson is the CEO of Louds Foundation, and she just took us through the playbook, what worked with her work, and she had an example, Built by Nature, and she drew that image and the successful partnership that you actually drafted and created. Thanks for the learnings. We want to hear more about the headaches later on, of course, but also, about the medicine that you found along the way. Also with us is Rob van Riet for the new faces here. He's coming from the First Movers Coalition of the World Economic Forum. And you also brought some thoughts, some ideas, something that you'd like to discuss us on.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, I have to say. And a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, I can confirm Darius is indeed here. I ran into him in the lounge. He was supposed to be in the session, but I can't see him from TPI, the Partnering Initiative. As you can hear, I'm struggling a little bit with my voice. I've chosen the right time to lose my voice, so let's see if I can get through these next 7 minutes. Also, I'm no longer the head of the First Movers Coalition. I gave that job to my predecessor. I'm still at the World Economic Forum, in fact, where I work with Gaia, which is the initiative that Leslie just referenced. And we are very proud that Built by Nature is a winner of our inaugural Gaia Awards last year. So, as a good student, I was looking at the guiding questions that you provided, I think not just us, but I think everybody in the room for this session. And I was reflecting yesterday on the train over, like, how can I share, as you call them, inputs in a way that sort of makes sense. There's this famous advice that is given to aspiring writers, which is write what you know, right? I think it's very true as well when you speak about these topics. It's good to speak about what you know, and I was very inspired also by the examples that Leslie just shared, because that then allows you to take some of these fairly abstract and theoretical concepts like multi-stakeholder partnerships, radical collaboration, systems change, participation or collaboration into real examples. So that's what I'll do. I'm going to refer to the initiative I know so well, which is the First Movers Coalition. I will just flag, it's going to sound a tad promotional. That's not the intent. It's merely to illustrate what I think some of the opportunities and challenges are in forging these partnerships. So the first question that was posed is, well, what kind of partnerships do we need to have an outcome on society? I will say, and I just scribbled it on my notes here, and in the notes of a madman, as you can see, these are complete, they mean nothing to you. I hope they mean something to me.
You have to read it. I don't know.
No,
I'm just listening.
I will glance at it from time to time. Well, who's society? Because the plenary, of course, made it again very clear that there are competing societal interests that policymakers and other stakeholders worry about. So are we talking about Berlin or German society? Are we talking about European society? No longer with the UK in it. I live in London, as do you, presumably, or at least in the UK. Yeah. Are we talking about global society? Because, of course, the challenges we face are, by nature, transboundary. Pollution, emissions, they don't stop at borders. Nature loss in location A has tremendous consequences for location B, several hundreds of thousands of miles away. So, it's a bit of a tried point, but clearly the solutions that we need to foster also need to be cross-border, cross-sector, and bring all those unlikely stakeholders together. So that's a good, I guess, segue to the First Movers Coalition, because I think it's an example of such a partnership. So the First Movers Coalition was launched by the World Economic Forum and the US government, previous administration, to be clear, in Glasgow at COP, to solve for a specific problem. And it's a problem that Leslie already alluded to, which is that there are a couple of heavy industry sectors. We all know and love them. The material side, steel, aluminum, cement, and concrete. And on the long-haul transportation side, trucking, aviation, and shipping. These are also known as hard-to-abate sectors. I'm personally not a fan of the term. They are possible to abate. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But they're certainly hard to abate. They're difficult to abate. For a long time, the global community sort of put them on the back burner at COPs and in climate negotiations for the simple reason that the solutions were not really there. It was plenty tough to just get agreement on energy. So let's forget about these sectors for a while. But you can only forget about them for so long because they account for about 25 to 30% of all global emissions. So if you don't decarbonize these sectors, you're never going to reach any goal that you have set. If you don't abate them, they're projected to rise to about half of all emissions by 2050. Because the world builds stuff, the world transports stuff, we fly around the world, so these sectors aren't going anywhere. The trick, or the issue is that about half of all the emissions reductions by 2050 need to come from technologies not yet at scale. So there's a market that needs to be grown for these deep decarbonization technologies, these frontier technologies, and we need to grow that market now if we're going to reap the benefits in abatement in the 2030s and 2040s. And that's where the First Movers Coalition came in. The idea was relatively simple. John Kerry and the World Economic Forum and then a bunch of companies came together and said, right, this market needs to grow. We know we need to decarbonize these sectors. Well, there are many ways to grow a market, and depending on what political economic model you favor, there are different ways. But one good way is to have early, credible, proven demand for those products. So what does that mean? That the First Movers Coalition has corporate members, more than 100, some of the biggest corporates in the world, big steel buyers, big transportation companies like Maersk in shipping, big automotive companies, etc., that make a commitment to buy, by 2030, a specific percentage of their total procurement to be deeply decarbonized products. So deeply decarbonized steel. Volvo, so one of our members in the steel sector, has committed to buy at least 10% of their total steel purchasing, which is a whole lot of steel, by 2030 to be near zero emission steel, not just any green steel, the greenest steel. And next to Volvo, 102 other members have made similar commitments across those sectors. That is projecting today the largest demand signal for these clean technologies in the world, almost $20 billion by 2030. And what I find very exciting, and that's, I guess, what I get to the second question, is that it's great to have those commitments by corporates, but of course they need to be followed through with actual investments, offtake deals. And that's where the focus of the initiative is. Second question that was posed is, how do you make these partnerships attractive? How am I on time, by the way? You're still sort of...
1:30.
What does 1:30?
1 minute and 30
Oh my, okay.
90 seconds.
Okay, all of a sudden these scribbles mean very little. What I found very encouraging is that when a company joins, and the CEO signs a letter, they become a member, one of the first questions they ask us is, right, where can I find the supply? Which means that they're serious about the commitment they've just made. So we've sort of evolved our body of program of the initiative to work with suppliers, working incidentally as well with a lot of the European-based startup supporting initiatives like the European Innovation Council, European Innovation Fund, others, to bring some of these suppliers, some of which are unicorns, startups, around the table with big companies that either could buy the product they're selling or could integrate some of their solutions into their supply chains. Then maybe, in light of the time, maybe I'll just end with this. There was much more I wanted to say, but maybe we'll get to that. Because the questions today had a very strong reference to society and how to engage society and how you can make sure that these partnerships don't just benefit the corporates that are involved in them or the governments that manage to roll out policies that build some of these industrial bases, but also have societal benefits. And I'll just leave with an anecdote that has always stuck with me. Several years ago, I went to the north of Sweden to one of the only, at the time, and still, unfortunately, green steel plants in the north of Sweden. For a roundtable similar to this one, where we had industrial partners on the supply side, so steel makers, big buyers of the stuff, government representatives, etc. But there was also the mayor of Luleå. Luleå is the town where this steel factory is located by. And so we went down the list, and the steel company was talking about all the great, and it's really great technological innovations that they're doing there, so they can actually make this ultra green steel. You know, the buyers were telling us, well, this is great because we've signed up to this commitment, and here we are actually being able to meet our commitment. And if you actually dilute, well, anyway, I'm not going to go into that. Then we came to the mayor of Luleå.
What did he say?
It was a she.
Oh, she, and sorry.
No, she said, this is all great, all the stuff about the technological revolution and First Movers Coalition. I look at my town, and if this green boom is going to happen in the north of Sweden, which incidentally is showing some signs of faltering, but this was a few years before, I have to think about very different things. All of a sudden, the one hairdresser I have in my town will no longer be sufficient to cut the hair of all the workers. They're going to flock to the north to work in these new industries. I need to think about schools. I need to think about the healthcare system up here. Mm-hmm. And to me, it just showed, so she was both very excited about the possibility of this reindustrialization of the green economy in the north of Sweden, which was a deindustrialized part of the country like many other parts in the world. But she was also quite sort of taken with the challenge of preparing that local society and all the services that are needed for such a boom. Mm-hmm. And I think it just really encapsulates really well what the societal aspects of all this talk about green industry and green transition actually entails. So I'll stop there, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob, for bringing so many more perspectives into our conversation. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I noted down, of course, some questions, but I would, looking at the time, start right away with your thoughts. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? What are your experiences? Tiago, do we have anything in the chat? You're the hand. Oh, yes, I'm very excited.
Yes, we have
Tell us.
a lot of questions and comments. I will try to bundle them so we do justice to them, so you can hold me accountable later on during lunch break.
He's the one.
If I don't get to it, but I think the first question is, it can start with a comment. Europe is known by being a protectionist region. Is partnership a necessity, a need, or a wish? We see some comments here already, people suggesting who those partners could be. For example, it says that Africa would have the largest, youngest population in a few years, that India has potential, that China and Saudi Arabia are very dynamic, but comes to the question, is partnership a need or a wish for Europe?
That's a brilliant question, and I would ask the whole audience, if you have an opinion to that, we need to start now to get it out of the digital space. I see you all. We can also talk with each other. We're in the same room, guys. Yes, do we have a microphone here? Wonderful.
You can use my microphone. Hannu's here. Okay.
You can also be, of course, seated on the stage if you like.
Whichever.
No, you're okay?
Okay.
Yes, if you want, come.
Okay.
You're the first mover, so to say.
Thanks very much.
Beautiful. What are your thoughts on the question on partnerships? Is it a necessity, a wish, or a need?
So I'm South African. I do long-term forecasting on where the world is going. And when you look at power in the world, so you get material power, soft power, smart power, you know, those concepts. Then you look long-term, then there's China, which surpasses material power in the US in about 10 years' time. China, then you have a large gap, and then you get India, eventually in the second half of the century, that becomes a global power. Europe's power declines, largely because its population declines. So my question is, Europe cannot become a third pole if it doesn't have partners. So my question is, who are those partners? Is it Africa because of your population need? Because without demographics, Europe, that's the main reason why your power is declining, but there are many others. Is it India? Is it Indonesia? Yeah, so that's really the issue. Because without a partnership in power, there was discussions about Canada, for example. Europe's relative power, it does not present a rules-based alternative to the gross capitalism of the US or the exploitative capitalism or the state-led development model of China. So to create this rules-based world, which there's a lot of support for, particularly in the global south, who are the European partners?
Do we have an answer to that here on stage? Do we have an answer to that? Oh, here we go.
I'll come here.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Because
I
it's a
can
very
come here.
interesting question from a South African perspective, because you also need, of course, partners in power for successful partnerships when it comes to your just energy transition and all that. But please, what's your comment?
I'll have, I guess, an opinion. Because of my background, I'm originally from the Dominican Republic, and I think Latin America could be that partner.
Can you put the microphone a bit closer?
I think Latin America could be that partner. Well, one, historically, our development come inspired and shared through the European values. Many other reasons why the development path has been different, but we have the population, 650 million. We have markets that are developing and growing. There are already existing partnerships. However, my question coming from Latin America, even though I live in Germany and I'm an American citizen, is who are we partnering with? Is it the European Union? Is it France, Germany, Italy, Spain? And I think that's where some of the challenges comes is, even though there's a European Union voice, sometimes we lack that who are the real partner with that is going to go into the different countries in Latin America. And we have seen, for example, the trade deal with EU and South America that got stalled with one of the countries in the European Union kind of pushing back. Again, so an opportunity potentially missed, or hopefully it will be completed. I think it has been already completed. So anyways, that would be my perspective on that regard, is that Latin America could be a great potential. We have resources as well, which has been really what has been exploited in the past, but there's other resources now with technology and talent.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, 2 hands. Let's go.
I'll just go here.
I saw
Okay.
him first, and then I'm coming to you. Perfect.
No, I just want to add a little bit to this discussion. It's like how it's going to be this partnership, because I think the model of someone win and someone loss is the best. I think it can create a win-win situation for the partnership. So I just add how it's going to be this partnership more than how it's going to be.
Good point.
I'll pass it on to the gentleman here.
Thank you. Ignacio, I work on climate diplomacy. I've been doing research on partnerships for a while as well. I actually have a provocation about the first word in our panel, which is leading, building on the basis of what the gentleman from South Africa said. I think it is fundamental that we are clear-eyed about what the North Star of the European strategy should be. And I think we kid ourselves when we over-focus on words like leadership. I think we are in a phase of structured decline, as you said, for Europe. And I think responsible leadership towards European voters is to put this reality in front of everyone and structure our strategies around a fact, which is our role and our weight in the world will decline relative to previous centuries as a matter of fact. And I'll put 2 provocations to illustrate that. Just recently, there were negotiations in the International Maritime Organization over a new tax. The US bulldozed in with Saudi Arabia and Russia and completely obliterated European diplomacy on the topic, despite support from Latin American countries. And they even wrote op-eds about it, celebrating it. So we're in a very sort of conflictual situation with the US. And on the other hand, in June, there was a trip of 10 leading Western venture capitalists to China, who basically came back and said, guys, catching up on clean tech is a chimera. Like, there's no way. We've lost this first race already with the Chinese. So yeah, my provocation is, how do we center this reality of structural decline of Europe in our foreign policy to build partnerships as a goal and as a reality?
Yeah, thank you. Leslie, is that a direct comment to that? Your microphone is broken. Take that one. Yeah, I have an in-ear, so I just got the info.
Right.
And then we came to the gentleman in the back, and oh, beautiful. I see you all. Tiago is the guy with the microphone, so please give him a hand. And Leslie, what's your comment on this provocation here?
So, well, it's kind of going to the original provocation, which is partnership necessity, a need, or a wish. And I'm not going to comment on the role of Europe being American living in a non-EU state, Switzerland. But what I will comment on is, let's bring it down to industry, because that's where we're working. And what I think is really interesting around partnership is there's a fine line between competing and collaborating. And we find that in, say, an accelerator like Fashion for Good we set up, where basically businesses are taking something that used to be their competitive advantage, innovation, fashion companies, think of Nike, Adidas, that used to be the secret sauce. It is still the secret sauce, yet coming in and collaborating in a way where everyone benefits. And that's working at a business level to a certain extent. And I just wonder, when we talk about kind of partnership, I just think if we really want to change a system, of course it's a necessity. But every partner needs to find value in doing it. And to your question, which I'm not going to answer, the rules of the system need to be there to incentivize that. So if there's uncertainty around trade rules, for example, or if there isn't rules that actually lift the laggards, so people can get away with, doing the bad stuff and not getting punished or incentivized to do otherwise, then that's hard for the good ones. So we do need a certain level of rules, and the current backsliding is challenging for businesses because they want that certainty.
Mm-hmm. Rob, do you have a comment on that, especially also to the question of our gentleman here from South Africa? Who are now the partners, for example, for South African partners that are willing to partner with someone, but who are these partners then?
Well, it is in some ways, I guess, the million-dollar question also in this moment in time, and I guess in Europe as well, like more broadly speaking, who is Europe's partner going forward? Not just on climate, but on a whole bunch of issues. I'm not going to weigh in on that. I will say, I think you hit the nail on the head, the gentleman over there. Like, what type of partnerships? Because, and this is a segue to South Africa, perhaps. The First Movers Coalition, had a workshop in South Africa on shipping, on the shipping sector and on trucking. So two sectors where we brought a lot of our buyers to South Africa, brought them together with some of the leading innovation in the country, and of course with the government. And there was a very clear message coming from all of them, but especially, of course, the government, saying, yes, we are excited about these potential models of partnership on clean fuels, on industry, on shipping decarbonization, with South Africa being a key port in that new infrastructure. But the partnerships should stop being extractive and exploitative. They need to also build the capacity in country so that we can also grow our own workforce and economy in a different way than in the past some of these partnerships have been. And that resonates, especially if you go to some of these emerging economies. And then the last comment, very briefly, I found the comment on China, of course, very interesting. Mm-hmm. We've all seen the graph of China's dominance in clean tech across all the different key technologies. It's undeniable. What's interesting about it is that you can look at that graph, you can have two people look at that graph and they have completely different takeaways. One could be, oh, this is great. We would be way worse off if China hadn't rolled out the clean tech in the way they've done, and if they weren't the clean tech hegemon as they are now. Somebody else looks at that graph and sees, oh, this is trouble. I've completely lost my competitive edge. I'm completely dominant, I'm completely reliant, rather, on my supply chain, on what's happening in China. I have all sorts of national security concerns, and that's clearly what we're seeing now. And I think we've sometimes, in the climate/energy/environment space, have not fully factored in that we are ultimately trying to advance these causes, but in a world of big power politics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you also to your question.
Yes.
Any add-on questions before we are coming to the audience questions again?
Well, let me make a remark or two. The first is that there is considerable. So Africa is 54 small, weak countries. And there's a rising global south, and there's a world that is much more regional, which is where the world is going. But there's a great support for what remains of the rules-based order. Mm-hmm. Outside of the US, China's trying to create its own version of that rules-based order. But as I try to indicate, there is huge support for a third way in which the European rules-based order is a very attractive option because Europe is predominantly a soft power. Yes, it's trying to increase its hard power capacity, but the nature of the EU means that it will never be a real hard power player. It's inherent in the way that it is structured. And the rest of us look at that and say, well, that's the kind of protection, rules-based order that we want. And in a sense, Africa, so the world trade is gravitating towards China because China's growing. China's trade with Africa is growing and trade with everybody is growing. But how do we advance a third option that I've said that is not dominated by either the Chinese version of a rules-based order or the destruction that is being wrought by the US, which is abandoning the rules-based order and going towards an isolationist, me first kind of attitude of the power, the strongest will determine and the rest must just suffer. That's not a world that I think many of us want. So I think that Europe has got two potential partners, if it really looks long-term. India and Africa. They may not seem intuitive, but I think that those are the options, those are the global partners, not in kind of a formal partnership at all, but through which you can create retain and build what is left of the rules-based order, because some in the world will want to still stay in that order, and some will depart from it and do their own thing.
Allow me, with Africa, you mean South Africa?
No.
Or a specific region?
Largely sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay.
Not South Africa. South Africa is...
Just to clarify, because you said India and Africa. Country, continent.
Yes.
That's why I wanted to clarify what you mean.
Yes. No, I'm not. It's not South Africa. I'm speaking really about Africa. Europe has been a huge partner for Africa, over the European Union, over many years. You funded the African peace and security architecture, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And your president of your commission is really reaching out to Africa. She was in South Africa recently, Ethiopia, et cetera, et cetera. There's quite a push, and Nigeria, which are some of the largest.
Beautiful.
economies.
Thanks for clarification. Thank you. You can go back to your seat if you want, or you stay, either way. But we have a hot comment over there and more comments. Thank you so much for... Tiago, I saw him the whole time. There's a mic, and you keep a mic over there. Thank you.
Can I make a comment on
Always, yes,
who is
please.
the partner for the future? I strongly believe that it's Africa, and it's not only South Africa, but the entire continent. I'm speaking in my role as board member of the Brussels Africa Hub. Brussels, Europe, not Brussels, Belgium, although I'm from Belgium. We bring together in Brussels, Europe, all the stakeholders together, partnerships, private, public, diplomacy, European Commission on a quarterly basis to look at the bridge Europe-Africa, but also, and especially also Africa back to Europe. So this is an open invitation for people who want to further build the partnership between Europe and Africa. It's now chaired by Mukhtar Ba. If you Google him, you will find him. But also the ambassador, the South African ambassador to Brussels, Europe, is also chairing this event, especially in the run-up to the G20, where South Africa is presiding.
What would you say, what is crucial for this type of partnership? Just to dive it into our title and to learn from your experience. Give us one learning that is crucial for a partnership between Europe and the African continent.
It's focus.
Focus.
I think it's focus, and currently we are focusing on the Global Gateway, which is a 250 billion investment of Europe into emerging markets. And you need to focus, and you need to focus with the group that have impact in the different countries. So we look at Africa as a continent.
Perfect. Thank you also for that learning. That's noted. Tiago, who's next?
Yes. Two comments. One is when you don't look at Latin America, and I'm coming from that, other regions do, and China is all over Latin America, and they're in it for a reason, because they're seeing it as its huge potential. I do think that Latin America gravitates toward more order and being able to do these partnerships, which would mean to be able to have a future where you can create innovation together. The other comment is a bit of an outlier, and I haven't heard enough speak about AI and humanoids, right? So we're talking a lot about Europe declining, mostly because of demographics. I live in the US, been there for over 30 years in innovation. That's the conversation. How is AI becoming part of team leaders, how they're working? We're having robots now in most of the industries. And I don't see that conversation here. And I think if Europe potentially is already having it, the competitive advantage of Europe and the potential for partnership also changes as we have a new, entry of robots into the workforce, which is very real.
Thank you. I'll take your last comment quickly to Leslie, because you said earlier, well, also one of your goals is bring together people that are normally don't speaking to each other, which I find super important, but also super difficult. Will AI and everything that's coming along with robotics maybe help us in that regard when we combine those two challenges? Or is that even a combination that's doable?
It could do. I guess I'm looking more at AI when I think of it through the industry lens and how it's going to transform these industries. And so we are seeing, for example, in fashion, that something that's become, that has been very manual and based on cheaper labor can be digitized and therefore will lead to reshoring and therefore job loss in some parts of the world and job gains in other parts of the world. So yes, I guess you could use AI to bring people together, but I think it's more, what are we going to do in terms of how AI is going to transform these industries to ensure that these businesses and industries can still be good for people, planet, and nature? Like, that's what we're trying to figure out. And I don't think any of us have the answers to that yet.
Perfect. Okay, next comment. Tiago. Oh, yeah, I see.
Hi.
How long do you still have time?
Okay, hi. I'm not sure. I think you can hear me. My name is Eden. I'm from Ethiopia. I'm here representing the One Campaign as a youth ambassador. I just want to counter one of the statements made by the South African gentleman. He said that Africa is a continent with 54 small, weak nations. I'm Ethiopian myself, and I do counter that because that is a continuation of colonial narratives, which I think we should not push anywhere, not just in big conferences. Number one, this notion of weakness comes from colonial fragmentation, which I think we should we should stop that. And the second thing is Africa has tremendous economic potential. It has large economies, and by the way, it has 55 countries according to the African Union, and we should really, when we're talking about African countries, please stop blocking it as one continent. There's so many countries with various economic stages. Some are in conflict, some have great, democracies. And we should understand that nuance, and we should talk about it. And somebody talked about the demography and that there's large youth growth, and that's true. But we also have, when the African Free Continental Trade Agreement becomes fully functional, it will be the largest single market in the world. Furthermore, the biggest economies that we've been talking about, the EU, Russia, China, they're all competing for Africa's interests. They want to partner with Africa. Everybody wants to partner with Africa. It contains also 30% of the world's critical minerals. So wording is very important, and I think nuance is also very important. So please, let's keep this in mind, not just as leaders, but young people in the room, we're listening, Africans in the room are listening, and it's very, very important that we feel included in these discussions meaningfully. Thank you.
Eden, thank you. First of all, Salamno, welcome, and of course, Amas Eginalo for very clear exclamation mark here. Tiago, you're the man of the microphone. Yeah. Give me a guidance.
Thank you. I think European power will always be only a wish, because we are not prepared to face the crucial question of Europe. If Europe wants to return from the side table to the main table, it needs military strength and not at least a second strike capability with nuclear weapons. This means much more than strengthens France's nuclear power, Above all, it means German nuclear rearmament, preferable in cooperation with France and Great Britain.
I see that as a comment, right? Rather a comment than a question when we talk about military strength.
It's a comment, and it's a question how you will get to power without this.
Military strength, okay. We come to that in a second because I'm collecting 2 more questions. Or Thiago, do we have anything?
There's one more here, or I can take from Slido as well.
You decide, you're the man of the crowd.
I'll take one from Slido briefly, because I think it's very much connected to the best practices Leslie were talking about. How can we help scale private-public and philanthropic partnerships into commercial successes that impact a triple bottom line?
The PPPs, Leslie.
Great question. Is this on?
Oh, hang on.
Here we go.
I'll have
Okay.
number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
so-
this is the broken one. You have this is number
Okay,
4.
It was working for a while. Okay, testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, here we go.
Do you want
Is
Oh no, I think it's working. It's working. Yeah, good.
I'm so sorry for.
Yeah. Okay. No. So great question. And this goes at the heart of what role philanthropy should play, because I do think that, I mean, as I said in my previous comments, philanthropy should be there to inspire what's possible, remove barriers, kind of, I was going to say prime the pump. That's a terrible analogy in times of climate crisis, but, really kind of put some money in to then attract other more commercial investors and get things ready to scale and then step away. And I think what's really important is to have this broader systems view, so you're piecing together the different pieces, the private sector, the public sector, civil society. Everyone has a role to play. So it is a very systems-driven approach. I think where you don't see that scaling is when businesses don't see value in it, things aren't ready for commercialization, and then, you won't be able to have these partnerships succeed. And we've learned probably the hard way with Fashion for Good is how you scale innovations. And of the 200 innovations that we're supporting, I would say that maybe 1 or 2 are ready for scale. It takes a lot. So time frame, a little bit of money to prime the pump, de-risking, and showing what good looks like.
Yeah. Rob, last question to you, because I got the note that we need to finish here. To make a partnership successful, how do we make a partnership successful also for the people?
I wanted to talk about nuclear weapons. No, I was going to say...
Well,
I was going to say...
I want to look on the positive side of life.
I was going to say that, as my friend in the audience knows, I spent a good decade of my life working on nuclear non-proliferation and arms control. But considering this is not Chatham House, but in fact is live streamed, I will refrain from any comments on nuclear armaments, or indeed my true feelings about AI and data centers, which I have. Look me up after the session to hear how I feel about that. But no, I mean, I want to pick up and maybe end on this point that Leslie just made, and she made it before, and I wanted to come in on it just to emphasize it. You said philanthropy is best sort of used as a spark, not a scalar, and to show what's possible. And I really could not agree more. One of the initiatives I was involved in several years ago was actually called the Mission Possible Partnership. And it was funded by a small set of philanthropies. And the idea was to show, to work with technical experts, to work with industry, with governments, to actually show that it is possible to decarbonize these quote-unquote hard-to-abate sectors. So we were rolling out roadmaps for these sectors, showing that if you actually scale some of these technologies, you can reach net zero by 2050. That work was funded by philanthropies, and I dare say if that work had not been done, the whole issue of industry decarbonization and the whole rallying cry with governments and industries to actually get moving on it would not have been on the agenda as it is today. And it's a perfect example of a couple of philanthropies stepping up, coming together, sending a very strong joint signal spark that then leads, with organizations like mine sort of taking then over in some ways, to real industry action on the ground, real investments in the real economy, real plans, real steel on the ground, as they say, and real jobs being built. But it started with that seed funding from philanthropy. So very powerful, and just wanted to echo that.
Thank you to both of you. Thiago, coming to a last look into Slido, what are other successful or criteria for successful, resilient, and sustainable partnerships? Is there anything in the chat as a comment when we look into the learnings? What can we learn? What can we take away as a key criteria here from that debate?
Here, there's one comment about the fact that South-South collaboration is on the rise. That's one point that has been raised here. We have more questions than comments, by the way. So I can tell you there's another one here talking about the need for us to look at those partnerships that could actually become traditional as well at some point, and look at the history of all of that. Somebody referring to the agreement between the European Union and Mercosur as well, that is expected in the upcoming months. So inviting us to keep an eye out on it. So, and actually there's a question about that, about expectations, if anybody wants to share that afterwards, because I have
That's a whole panel debate. I don't have time to do a Mercosur debate. But we have a coffee break coming just, in 2 minutes up.
Yeah, I'll close here with that comment.
Wonderful, thank you. I have seen a lot of more hands, which I'm very sorry, but we have a breakout. We have a coffee break coming up. Our title, it's a big question, right? What shapes a partnership? What is needed in this recipe when the surroundings are constantly changing? And that gives us room for more conversation, of course. Just to do a little bit of expectation management, that we are still on the hunt for finding solutions and criteria. Thank you all for participating in this breakout. And thanks to Rob and Leslie, to your inputs. Thank you. And just allow me to give you a little bit of navigation. So we have another break until 12:30 now, and then we have the share back from the breakout. So we have a closing keynote and then another artistic performance. But we will see each other again at 12:30. Is that a deal? Yes? Yeah. Wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for joining our breakout session. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good to see you again, and I hope you had very good breakout sessions. May I ask you to take your seats? Thank you very much. Good to see you again, and may I ask? I know that we're not making any kind of sharebacks to the last sessions, but did you like the? It's a new format. Did you like it? Was it enjoyable? Was it good? Did it? Yeah. Okay. So do me a favor. Yes, I would like to ask you for a round of applause for the organizers. We'll come to that later on as well, Katie and I. But it's a lot of work organizing and orchestrating these kind of sessions. But I'm glad you liked it, and I liked it a lot. It's more of a theater play, isn't it? Somehow. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this, I'd say, inspiring two-day event here in Berlin to a close, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce someone whose vision, whose intellect, and boundless curiosity have shaped the very frontiers of European science and society, Professor Maria Leptin. Now, if you haven't had yet the privilege of meeting Professor Leptin, let me assure you, she's not just the president of the European Research Council. She's a true champion of curiosity-driven research, a molecular biologist with a knack for asking the questions hardly anybody else dares, and a leader who believes that science should be as bold and interconnected as the world we actually live in. Throughout her career, Professor Leptin has been a relentless advocate for scientific rigor and for creative thinking. She has navigated the complexities of academia. She led pioneering research in developmental biology and immunology, and rumor has it, can even explain the mysteries of cell migration over a cup of coffee. But perhaps most importantly, she understands that the future of research isn't just about test tubes and about data points. It's about people. It's about societies. It's about us. It's about you and me, and above all, about the values that bind us together. Today, as we look toward a rapidly changing world, obviously, Professor Leptin will share her thoughts on, I quote, a global momentum for the socio-European model. It's a topic that couldn't be more timely, I think, and I guess you agree. In a global era of global challenges, how can Europe's unique blend of social responsibility, of scientific excellence, of its problems, of its challenges that we heard about the last couple of days, and about open collaboration become a driving force for positive change? So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage a scientist, a leader, and a true European visionary, Professor Maria Leptin.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Whoever came up with that text is a master of flattery. I can live up to some of these things. Curiosity, yes. Intellect, we'll see. Also, thank you to the BMW Foundation for the invitation, and for all of you for hanging around here and sticking around for the last talk. Last week, on October 13th, Philippe Aghion, a longtime ERC grantee, was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences, together with Joël Mokyr and Peter Howard, for having explained innovation-driven economic growth. Very relevant to the discussion today. For the ERC, it was another moment of pride. We've funded his research with 2 consecutive grants, and Aghion is now the 15th ERC grantee to have received the Nobel Prize. And the others included fields from ancient DNA, climate modeling, quantum information, etc. But this award also gives us an opportunity to think and reflect on the ideas that underpin not only Aghion's work, but European socio-economic model itself. Over the past couple of centuries, the world has seen an extraordinary transformation. During this time, we've seen sustained economic growth that compounds over time rather than the stagnation that defined much of human history before that. The 2025 Nobel Prize in Economic Science honors Joël Mokyr, Philippe Aghion, and Peter Howitt for their complementary contributions towards explaining why this sustained growth became possible and under what conditions, and that's perhaps even more interesting for us, it can persist. More than 60 years ago, research by the economist Robert Solove highlighted the importance of innovation for growth. So that's an old idea, that growth requires innovation. But he was less concerned with how this generation can be generated. More recently, Paul Romer, another Nobel laureate in 2018, worked on the concept of ideas. And he said that ideas, unlike different economic outputs, have three critical qualities. First of all, they're non-rival. This means that unlike people or machines, for example, those that are tearing down the West Wing right now, they can't at least tear down other things. But unlike people or machines, ideas, if somebody uses an idea, it does not stop others from using that same idea. So ideas can be used by many people in parallel. Secondly, ideas are non-excludable. Once someone has come up with an idea, it's relatively easy for people to copy and use the idea. And finally, and this is important, ideas can be combined. So this idea of combination might initially sound trivial or obvious, but it's actually very important. Because with each new understanding we have, with each new idea we have, we now have the possibility of combining that with all other knowledge that we already have. And that's what Romer described as, or defined as, combinatorial explosion. And it's driven the huge rise in living standards that, in his view, that we've seen over the last 2 centuries. It's very simple. The more knowledge we acquire, the more useful combinations we can make, and they become possible. And an example of this amazing power of combination are the lithography machines that are built by ASML, obviously the backbone of global semiconductor industry, and they've been described as the most complex machines ever built. Each one of these contains more than 100,000 parts, weighs 180 tons, and costs over 150 million. And there's probably a good reason why nobody else can manufacture them. And these machines, of course, bring together decades of research and development and a whole suite of technologies aligned to the tightest of tolerances in order to build this precision at the atomic scale that we need to make the chips. I often hear the argument, in fact, far too often, that taxpayer money should only be spent where economic returns are guaranteed. As a scientist, that's totally ununderstandable. Although, of course, for the taxpayer and for the politicians, and even for citizens like me, it sounds reasonable. But if we think about it for a moment, what does guaranteed return actually mean? In the world of science and innovation, the greatest impacts are often not guaranteed. They don't come from something that was guaranteed. They are highly contingent and totally unpredictable. ASML was a combination of Philips and ASM, who created a joint venture in 1984, at a time when they had no commercially viable products and huge losses, and there was no guarantee at all that they would one day grow into this global monopoly. And they didn't do this alone. They benefited greatly from decades of work by more than 30 organizations, including critical support from the public sector. It's, of course, tempting for policymakers to think of research and innovation as a smooth and predictable process. It's often described as a pipeline. And it's almost like a relay race where each runner perfectly hands the baton towards the next one, and they all work toward a clear, guaranteed goal. That's simply not how research and innovation work. It's more like a team sport, like a football game, which is chaotic. Certainly watching football is chaotic to me, even when the rest of the family understands it on TV. I don't. But it is, in fact, often unpredictable, messy, and even I understand that. So for all the brilliance and skill we see, players miss the goal, lose the ball. And in research innovation, some projects simply end abruptly, going nowhere. Some ideas fail, appearing like wasted effort and resources. We scientists know that they're not wasted. They bring learning. But, you know, in isolation, many research efforts appear unsuccessful or incomplete or possibly even misguided. The RNA modifications that eventually led to the COVID vaccine were such an example. When Katalin Karikó worked on them 20 years ago, she was considered misguided. Another example is the lithium-ion battery. Obviously extremely important. Portable electronics, laptops, smartphones, and now cars, and probably energy storage. But to get to where we use lithium-ion batteries now was a totally tortuous long road. Many false starts, setbacks, failures, materials that didn't work, prototypes that couldn't be scaled, hugely expensive ventures that never made it off the drawing board. It took decades of research performed all around the world before a practical battery was possible. So it's not R&D. It's R&D and R&D and R&D, and eventually something may come out. Nothing linear about that. The other thing is that research and innovation are therefore collective efforts. And the job of policymakers is not to demand immediate success from every attempt, but rather to support and encourage the entire messy, dynamic, collaborative process. The prize for Moukher, Aghion, and Hewitt right now reminds us again that new ideas power long-run prosperity to the churn of creative destruction. That's not their term. It goes back further. But so half of the prize went to Moukher for identifying the prerequisites for sustained growth through technological process, and the other half went jointly to Aghion and Howitt for the theory of sustained growth via creative destruction. And their work shows that science and new ideas aren't nice-to-haves. They show they are the engine room of growth. And that's partly why Philippe Aghion is a huge supporter of the ERC. He understands that the kind of blue sky, fundamental research, researcher-driven ideas are what fuels growth and innovation. But Moukher describes how when you combine knowledge of how the world works, and he calls this propositional knowledge, with the knowledge of how to build things that work, what he calls prescriptive knowledge, you get compounding progress. Our society escaped historical stagnation when they learned to institutionalize that links between science and application, and to protect the messy but fruitful processes of continual replacement that follows. Aghion and Howitt put the formal structure under this story in 1992. And their story also shows the power of collaboration, which is so important for scientific progress. Their insight, derived from Schumpeter, who I believe created the term creative destruction, was that economies advance when entrepreneurs invest in R&D to leapfrog others, earn temporary rents, and then get leapfrogged in turn. This doesn't just create new projects, it reallocates resources, reshapes firms, and yes, it does destroy jobs and business models. That's the destructive part. And that's why Aghion subsequently spent much of his career trying to work out how you get the upside of dynamism while containing and reducing the downside of disruption. He argues that fostering innovation is all about balance. Innovation thrives with competition. Science research thrives with competition, but too much competition can diminish the rewards of new technologies, businesses, and ideas. International competition can stimulate innovation and efficiency, but too much competition risks provoking a backlash against globalization. And we heard this about the context of Europe. This morning, Catherine was very vocal about that competing is not the point. We've come to a point where competing is counterproductive. For Aghion, growth lasts when you, 1, design rules that fund the upstream science that feeds the pipeline, 2, let new entrants challenge the incumbents, he calls that competition policy, and 3, ensure people against the shocks of change, and that's where we in Europe are very timid. And if you ensure all those 3, then the creative disruption becomes socially and politically tolerable. So sustained growth is not automatic. It relies on institutions that keep the innovation engine turning and keep society confident enough to accept change. It's probably no coincidence that Aghion's preferred model sounds a lot like the European model. We in Europe at our best try to make structural change politically sustainable and unpainful. We invest public money in upstream scientists at arm's length, including ERC-style excellence funding, of which our American colleagues are very envious. We use competition authorities to keep markets contestable, and the European model relies on social insurance so that workers aren't asked to carry all the risk of transformation. Does that mean that we in Europe have hit on the ideal model, which can serve as a global model for sustainable development for other geopolitical blocs around the world? Not from what we're hearing from our politicians. But I guess in the real world, there are no perfect models, only trade-offs. And Europe isn't the only model for marrying ideas and growth. Of course, we're constantly looking at the US and China. The US model leans harder into scale and speed. We've also heard that this morning. Deep capital markets and very large domestic demand compared to the small national demands here in Europe. We are not a continent. We're 27 nations. Actually, we're more. We keep only talking about the EU. We'll get back to that in a moment. So they have a very large domestic demand, which makes it easier for them to finance risky bets, absorb failures, and scale winners quickly. The upside is, of course, visible in the number of frontier tech firms and platforms there. The downside is that you must constantly guard against emerging monopolies, some of which are very dangerous, whose dominance could strangle also the next wave. And the Chinese model, the other one that our politicians like to compare us to, we've seen that they've excelled at coordinated catch-up, levering their latecomer advantage, state-steered investment, huge internal market to adopt and adapt and scale at amazing speed. The downside of this model is, as you approach the frontier, the system must keep making room for bottom-up experimentation and the replacement of incumbents. But we're seeing that they've cottoned onto that too. But is China's leadership willing to allow the necessary creative destruction? Aghion himself has been part of the debate of whether long-term innovation requires democracy and liberal institutions to to prosper. So where does that leave us? There are strengths and weaknesses of the current models, and I don't think that anyone believes Europe gets everything right. Draghi's report offers critical insights, and he's actually made them even stronger. He's become even more vociferous about the need for change. He argues unambiguously for stepping up Europe's capacity to invest together as a continent, not as individual countries. And I would say we can't even say 27. We can't function without having UK and Switzerland and the other countries that are not part of the EU being part of our team. So we argue for stepping up Europe's capacity to invest together in true European public goods, breakthrough innovation, cross-border grids, other continental scale projects, and of course defense-related capabilities. And these have to be underpinned by common or joint funding where national action undersupplies them. In Draghi's framing, competitiveness now requires both better rules and more firepower. So in conclusion, Europe's future position in the world won't come from choosing between growth, cohesion, innovation, and democracy. It'll come from designing institutions that make those four, again, cohesion, growth, innovation, and democracy, reinforce each other at speed and at scale. The 2025 Nobel tells us that ideas compound when societies let them. Draghi tells us the politics must now catch up with theory by investing together by the European public goods that set the power of new ideas free. And I think Alexander De Croo and many others this morning made it clear that it's for all of our countries together to face that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your closing keynote, Professor Leptin. And I welcome now also my colleague, my dear colleague, Katie, on stage. And Katie's telling us what's happening now. Let's go.
We are on our last mile, so we welcome the board now again here on stage. Heba Agib and Heike Schneeweiß, please join us. Heba, I'd like to start with you. So when you look back to this forum, what's in your mind? You know, what is something that you thought of that you'd like to reflect on that you are taking home with you?
So I hope you enjoyed it. I think there's a lot to think about. So I feel like I need to think about the different perspectives and have some thoughts about the future and how to do things. What have been mentioned yesterday in the discussion between Bruno Le Maire and Anne-Laure, to remember where we started yesterday, Anne-Laure said the big bottleneck is the grid. And I want to highlight how important it is to build out the grid, invest in infrastructure, and to scale innovations to make that possible. And we do something to accelerate that. And if you allow me, I will take you again through what we're committing to. We have, you've seen yesterday the 6 Respond cohort with 15 startups that closed their sprints yesterday. Next year, we will have another cohort on energy transition. Additionally, a second cohort on the future of urban living, to see how we can build out our metropolitan areas and develop even more. And something that you might have heard of 2 days ago, here also at EUREF, we launched our pilot for our scale-up program, Respond Scale-up program, together with the IFC. And this is an example, I hope, and we will develop this together for effective collaboration between partners that normally would not partner up, but we all work together to scale innovations and advance and accelerate the energy transition and infrastructure development. I close here because you heard a lot and.
Thank you, Heba. But thank you very much. And as you just said, what we see here what we have seen here during the last 2 days, it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the work of the BMW Foundation. There's a lot behind the scenes. There's a lot during the year. And then thank you for also giving us that glimpse and that insight. You mentioned the word collaboration, and when I hear the word collaboration, I see you and I think of you. And Heike, maybe you want to add on something because was this a good example of collaboration? Are you happy with the way we collaborated and people exchanged thoughts and business cards and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I have to say, yes, we are happy, and we are very pleased that you're all still here. It's Friday noon, and the party is as good as its guests. So I really want to say it's made by participants, and we have a lot of different sectors here. And I'm very pleased that you all joined the workshops, that you were very active. You know, we even had too few chairs in our meetings. You know, more people want to jump on a hot chair. So thank you so much for being with us here. You are wonderful people, wonderful guests. And may I announce already something for next year? May I announce already something for next year?
Well, because, if you have something to announce,
yes,
then you should.
This year we are a little bit better. We know already that we are having the event next year as well, for sure in October, but we know the date already. So it's on the 15th and 16th of October. And we are looking forward that you join us. And for sure, we will take all the topics with us. It's a lot of work for us, not just before the event. It's also some work after the event. And some of you we might see also on the MSC, which is from the 12th to the 14th of February next year. So this will be the two mega events for us. They are a little bit of a marathon for us. Yeah, but we see it more as a sprint because you are right, you know, the strategy is even the marathon. So that's our sprint, and I think today we can say it's a sprint. Yesterday or the day before we thought it's a marathon, but so far it worked out. Thank you. Big thank you to all of you for being here.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Heike.
you.
And please, probably every marathon, in retrospective, every marathon looks like a sprint if you have successfully completed it. So
Thank you very much.
Mark your calendars. Stay on stage. Mark your calendars. Mark your calendars as being said by Heike. October 15th and 16th next year here in Berlin, and prior to that at the Munich Security Conference, the MSC in Munich. It's February 12th until February 14th. Ladies and gentlemen, Katie and I would like to thank you very much for your attention over the course of the last 2 days, for your contributions that were excellent, for the interaction. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic weekend, safe travels back home, and hope to see you soon at the Munich Security Conference or next year in Berlin. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you. Just allow me one more thing to say, because lunch is around the corner. And I think that's an important information for all of us. So the networking lunch will now taking place in a second at the Wasserturm Café. The wardrobe will stay open until 3 p.m. I think that's important for you, for logistics, just the details. And then we close now our events with us four here on stage in a second, saying thank you to all of you, to the team behind the scenes, but also with a musical performance. An improvised piece again by Barbara Heller, a female composer living in Darmstadt, exploring the dialogues between instruments and interpreting what collaboration means with the art of music. And with that,
we'll start, but maybe we can have a really strong applause for two components. One is that the artistic program Katie just mentioned. And the other part of your enthusiastic applause is attributed to the people behind the scenes who made all this possible and who are listening now and will measure their success kind of with the intensity of your applause. So let's go. Come on.
thank you, they are over there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Enjoy it. Bye.